We are not long now from the launch of Tears of the Kingdom on May 12th, and if the hype train hasn't well and truly caught up with me now, I'm about to add even more baggage to the carriage by bringing to you the final leaks video. As per usual, I'll give the normal warnings. All images will be blurred and it will not be easy to see deliberately. This helps protect me and the channel a little. I will not be sharing the link to the art book, which Nintendo now have fully gone to war with, and comments asking for it will just be deleted now because I've kind of run out of ways to say no. So now that the harsh bit is over, let's do it. Let's dive in again. Page 151, here we come, and trust me on this one guys, this is going to be a freaking crazy episode. The content in this section is, well, mind-blowing. Today I'm starting with a water paddle. It's made up of a series of parts that seemingly can be added to. This then powers the generator on the left. Tell me that this isn't a puzzle of some form. Please, I'm begging you, because this 100% screams puzzle. We've seen a lot of these so far across various pages, and the more I see, the more I believe we will have dungeons in the game. We must do by now, right? Right? Pages 152 and 153, we have a male and a female Hylian and they're dressed in various outfits. The outfits from left to right begin looking a little bit like Guy with Swords Link's pyjamas outfit, the Outset Island outfit, and an explorer with a weird hat. There are horses emblazoned on this, so I'm betting that this outfit is used for the stable owners. The females also have familiar styles. What looks like a female style of the same outfit above, a regular outfit, and a dress that looks like an early version of Princess Zelda's dress from Ocarina of Time. This game feels like it's going to be littered with Easter eggs and callbacks to the old games, and it's given me a little giddy feeling. Oh hello page 154, you are a little treat. This is a sky island, and the sky island spews lava out of the top of it, and then you go inside of that said island, and you're greeted with a dome that has a ring of fire around the outside. This has to be a boss chamber, and is accessed by opening the 5 strange monster mouths. Now, I'm starting to wonder if some of these sky islands are in fact dungeons themselves. We're back to painting now, and we've got pictures of the carrier that Link stands on and places he has been. He is stood in this room now, wearing a beret, and I think that this all might be something to do with the notion of Link using paintings as a method of recollecting what has happened. A bit like the Forgotten Memories side quest in Breath of the Wild. They had to replace it somehow, and this is how. While nothing has been confirmed, I think we see this in action as we get a shot of Link inside of the royal throne room. Remember, this has been destroyed in Breath of the Wild, and even if it's been rebuilt after the events of Breath of the Wild, it's clearly occupied by someone different by the time we get to Tears of the Kingdom. And there's this white, almost sparkly light that the room seems to glow with when Link is stood inside of it. I think this is an example of a memory at work. But Link is potentially transported in his current state to the memory, meaning that they will be playable instead of just cutscenes. Can we just agree that the designers of this Zonai equipment deserve an award of some form? I mean, this game will win plenty. But this design is absolutely stunning. A white large bow is on the left of the page and it looks more like a long bow from the size, but this has likely been blown up to make it look larger. This is described as an old wooden bow. I can't wait to see the modern design. There's also a spear here as well. It all looks so elegant. Toga Link seems to have another colour palette as well. More brown and grey than green and white. And the headgear here is a crazy headdress that looks Incan in design, with many eyes on the design, similar to that of a peacock. The Sky Islands here look amazing, and we finally get to see the scope of them in the latest trailer. This next image I covered in the Your Theories video. Though closer to being dodecagonal room has the floor opened up, and we see the overhead view of the map. This lines up directly with the map from Breath of the Wild, and I think it's taken from a high location within the Sky Islands. A few things here of note though that I thought seemed interesting. The Great Hyrule Forest is no longer in the game. It's been replaced by an interesting elevated area with a massive white building on the plateau. this building is likely going to end up being a temple of some form, though not necessarily a dungeon, but something important to the main quest of the game. The fact that the forest no longer exists is interesting, as we see Link's arm grabbing at the Master Sword in the latest trailer. But the Master Sword is housed inside of this forest. Perhaps it's been destroyed by Ganondorf, or perhaps, and crazier still, the people of Hyrule rebuilt around the pedestal that the sword sleeps within in order to house the evil. And this is the new rendition of the Temple of Time. It looks like we have reference to the floor tattoos or glyphs on this drawing too, and I think I count 11. There's one that looks like the slate on the right, and right up at the top where the Ketu Wawai shrine would have been, is an image of the Triforce etched into the floor. This sits directly north of where the site for the Temple of Time could be. I love a bit of symbolism. To the right of this is a marking of a sword. This seems to be located somewhere around Death Mountain, but not at the top of the elevation caused by the mountain. I find it interesting that on this map are the tools that are designed to help the hero overcome the evil. None of this is accidental, and maybe they're being used to explain where we obtain certain items. On the right at the bottom, where Lorelin Village lies, is the shape of a scimitar, which intrigues me because this shape I would expect to see where Riju resides in the Gerudo Desert due to their people favouring the scimitar styled weapon. There are etchings of these drawings on the walls of the building also, and it doesn't appear as if these match the etchings on the floor on the actual map where we're walking. These seem helpful, whereas the others seem like divine beasts. I think that this building is here to help us find these artifacts that will help us defeat Ganondorf. Next, we've got a giant mushroom and a huge bench made for actual giants, if we're looking at the tiny Link shapes for scale. This is one of two things. We are either going to visit an area that is made for giants, or Link is going to get shrunk down. If he's going to get shrunk down, then expect the Minish. We next see a shot of a rubber suit, obviously for resisting electro or shock enemies. We've also got a bear paraglider. I don't know where bears come from in this, unless these guys we saw earlier with the horse tribal markings are one group, and then we have bears and other animals represented by different factions. The next page here is a mystery, and is a green pattern set into a white, almost roots-like material. The green pattern part has a texture like the cross-section of broken glass. This has to be something that we pick up and use in crafting, I feel. We're flying through now, and up to page 163, which has yet more train tracks along with a gateway system. It wouldn't be a train track section without these. Let's be honest. Guys, how much do you want confirmation of dungeons? Well, before I can give you that confirmation, I want you to do me one simple favour and subscribe to this channel. That's obviously if you haven't already, and help us push our way to 1,000 subscribers. So now that you're hopefully all subscribed, let's give you indicative proof that dungeons are coming. This page, this one right here, this is it. And it's with one simple image. The key on the right hand side is designed like a Zonai eye, and is listed on this page via the translation as a small key. The only place that we use small keys in is dungeons. Now don't get me wrong, there are locations in Breath of the Wild, such as the Quarime Shrine, where small keys do make an appearance in Breath of the Wild. But for them to get a small feature on a page in an art book with a brand new Zonai inspired design doesn't tell me that they will be used as sporadically as they were in Breath of the Wild. I think these will be a relatively often thing. Often at least, because we will need them in all of the dungeons to come within the game. And if I'm right, there are at least 6 of them. The left of this page has a strange lizard-like creature. He's light blue with bright orange toes and a large shaggy fringe covering his face. He has antlers of some form growing from his head, which glow with a blue light. This guy actually looks like, from colouring alone, the sacred beast Satori. I wonder if this is the only one like him, or if maybe there will be other lords to uncover. This could be the Lord of the Lakes potentially, as his legs look amphibian. We could have Satori return as the Lord of the Mountain, and various others could be lords of their own domain. Page 156 shows a sky island with an activated spiral stone at the top of the pillar, with a spiral staircase surrounding it. The fact that this is activated at the top means that it actually has nothing at all to do with the sky islands, as they are seen in seemingly each area of the map. We haven't seen any underground yet, but I'm pretty sure they will be there too. The more I see of these, the more I think that they're shrines. We now have another outfit from yesteryear, and this one is 100% meant to be a throwback to Zelda 1 and the Adventure of Link. The translation above reads, "Breathing Hero Outfit, Supplementary Manuscript." This phrase, supplementary manuscript, has been used a couple of times, so I think that this is an optional extra, like something redeemed from perhaps an amiibo or downloadable content. On the right we have large enemy wings, not sure from what enemies though. They don't look like the enemies that we've seen that are carrying Bokoblin, so perhaps something new entirely. Next we have an impressive looking drawing of the outside of a building. The windows are styled out with the Zonai patterning, and there's a bridge leading to the building with an awning over the top. The roof is incredible, and immediately made me think of something. The library building in Link's Awakening has a very similar roof, and then I thought back to the library room in this art book and kind of put two and two together. I think that this is that building from the outside. You know, I feel like I'm seemingly counting all the ways this game creates a throwback to old games, and here is another one in full. We see a stork with a satchel, goggles and a flying cap. He carries a map on his hip and the satchel on his opposite side. This guy is one of two things, but I think we are past the need for postmen in Zelda games, or he's a cartographer. We saw something similar in Wind Waker, and I like this idea, that we get maps for one of the areas, presumably from the sky, from this guy. A load of bridges and defences are up next, made of wood. These look cool, but they're going to be stage design objects. It's time for a spoiler alert, and where I've placed them before with the idea of stating that this may spoil the game, this one is a little more serious. If you don't want to hear spoilers about the story of the game, do not listen to this part of the video. If you don't want any part of the story to be ruined pre-game release, click on the timeline below to where it says end of spoilers. I mean this sincerely because I do not want to be responsible for ruining anyone's experience with this game. The next page, page 170, shows the figure from the tableau. We have seen this figure in the last official trailer for the game talking to Zelda. He, judging by his voice at least, is going to be one of the most important characters in the game. Now, I could go on and describe him, but let's be honest here, we now know what he looks like, but we don't know his name. Not unless you translated this book. This guy's name is Rauru. Yes, the Rauru. The Sage of Light, the Wise Old Man, Kapora Gabora, whatever you want to call him, this is the Tears of the Kingdom rendition of Rauru. This guy is one of the 7 sages, or maidens, depending on the Zelda game that you're playing, and he is going to be the most important character in this game. So let's piece things together a little. Zelda is seen falling in the latest trailer and Link tries to catch her, we know that much, but now we see him fail, and suddenly she is left in a glowing light. The scene cuts, but we see a later scene in an earlier trailer where she is caught by another arm that looks like Link's from below. We later then see Zelda dressed in all of her royal finery, and is likely more the image of the goddess Hylia that she was trying to become in Breath of the Wild. An arm extends to hers, and again it's that same arm, and she shakes it tentatively. We go to the latest trailer and we see Zelda confronted by Rauru, who tells her that in order to defeat evil, they will need to use Link and his sword as the last line of defense against the forces of evil. Link is then shown lifting the Master Sword from the pedestal, but there's an issue here. His hand is not the Zonai arm, so this is pre-upheaval. By the way, this is what Nintendo are officially labelling this event. We had the Calamity to describe the Guardians being turned against Hyrule. The land being lifted into the sky is named the Upheaval, and that's according to the official Tears of the Kingdom website. By the way, does anyone see the symbolism in this? At the start of the timeline, the force of good, Hylia, lifts the land into the sky to save the people. At the end of the timeline, it's the complete opposite. Evil lifts the land into the sky to aid with ending humanity. This guy basically is the reason for Link and Zelda's involvement in saving Hyrule. I imagine if this is Rauru, that he will also be the font of all knowledge for the heroes in the story, and will be there to aid Zelda in aiding Link in finding the titular Tears of the Kingdom. These tears we have seen seem to be held by the champions, or but by the seams of things the one held by the Gorons. And where Yonobu should hold it, it seems to be held by none other than Ganondorf. Next up, we see another outfit for Link, and this one is freaking awesome. It looks a lot like Xant's from Twilight Princess, and I'm a massive fan of this. I hope it has some amazing abilities or stat gains. We got our scimitar that I was talking about, and this is without a doubt Gerudo. This is a nice clean design. We now get a load of very early concept art showing movement and poses while holding certain weaponry, before we get a load of information about the carts that will be dragged by horses. This one is particularly regal, but we've learned that these will be used potentially to transport other characters, and those other characters could potentially help us in battle. I love this concept, and it will stop the empty feeling world which Breath of the Wild suffered from massively. We've got some horses next, and new patterns for the horses which is needed as an update to their design. We've next got a building. 3 walls at least, with a fan blade at the bottom, which I think we will use to propel ourselves into the entrance on the right hand side. This will be inside of a dungeon, I think. Now we have a platform followed by the sealing ground of Ganondorf. Link is stood in the middle of the first platform and everything surrounding him is pitch black. We've got a demon mask next, and this thing looks like it's been made by a 5-year-old. It has shaggy long grey hair, a patchwork face and a sock for a nose. It's really ugly, which probably infers that it will have the best abilities in the game. What's the betting it allows you to pass by monsters unnoticed. We now see a female who is once again a part of the Mushroom Tribe. She looks somewhat more important than the people that we have seen before in similar outfit. She's wearing a blue shirt and a pencil skirt with a white cravat and then a gold trim around her neck. We saw these guys have settled in Hateno village, and perhaps she could well be the mayor of the newly settled people that have now taken residence where Hylians once lived. We next have a gate upon a small series of rocks set into the pool of water upon one of the Sky Islands. There is a symbol at the top of the gate, and this whole image just looks somewhat magical. At the bottom of the page there is a small image of the gate without the symbol embedded into it, which tells us that this could well be a quest to return this to the gate. Perhaps once this happens, the gate lights up and transports Link to somewhere. Who knows where though at this point in time. We finally get a full shot next of the tree island, as I've affectionately named it. The rocks cover the entire island, and at the bottom of the island seems to be a platform which looks a bit like an awning of a building. Below that is another platform and a bunch of tree roots that seem to be covering the rock face. But I can't sit and think that this isn't something, like an entrance waiting to be opened up. The tree trunk itself is filled with a blue liquid that looks too luminous to be water, which seems to infer a magic pool of sorts. This island feels like a really big deal as it's been shown many times in the trailers and in this art book, and I can't help but feel like this is a dungeon of some form. Due to the Deku Tree being no longer existent on the main map, could it potentially be that the Deku Tree was in fact raised from the land and is now up in the sky? We see a better, clearer image of a ranger construct next, and this page confirms what we already know to be true. The rangers are tasked with the upkeep of the Sky Islands, which means each one will have its own role to fill. We've already seen soldiers, and their mission is to protect the Sky Islands, and the rangers who look after the yellow trees. We see a shovel here and can presume that they also wield these in order to plant more of the trees. I do wonder though if we will, at some point, be faced with the choice of helping these guys with resurrecting the Sky Islands. Perhaps it's a reference to the tree island in particular, where the more life that can flow through the island via the new trees and plants that are being taken care of, the more of the root system opens up, allowing us to venture further within this island. We have a pagoda next to an idyllic river with 3 rocks running across it, forming a walkway to another path. There is a table and 2 seats in the centre of this pagoda, which indicates that 2 characters are set to meet here, though for what purposes are unknown to us right now. I think if we do see flashbacks within the game, which I think are almost all but a guarantee now based on the last trailer, where Link is seen inside of a glowing version of the Hyrulean throne room, then this area could potentially be one of those flashbacks. This could explain why we don't see any of the lights that indicate the Sky Island here, because this was prior to the Sky Islands and is likely on the mainland. The left side though is more interesting still. We see what look like teeth from various angles, and the heading at the top reads Mordrazik, jawbone. I don't think we've ever seen an enemy named a Mordrazik in the series, but Zelda enemies are often made up of some form of etymology, and localizations may actually change this enemy name by the time we get our hands on it. The prefix Mor is actually used in Japan for some of the enemies that begin with Mol in the European translations. This is seen notably in Wind Waker with Molgera, who in Japan is named Morudo Giera. The Mor or Mol is usually used for worm-like enemies, so expect this one to be a worm type, something similar to the Molduga. Dra is of course dragon, and is commonly used for that exact purpose, such as Staldra in Skyward Sword, so perhaps this is a dragon mixed with a worm. The Zik is a bit more of a mystery, but it's likely to be a descriptive for this enemy in particular. I actually wonder if these jaws belong to a giant worm-like creature that is seen inside one of the tornadoes within the trailer. It would suit this also, as the jaw looks white in colour, which could indicate a possible ice link. So next we have the same room as page 146, but a more front-facing perspective. Here we have one of the Tears of the Kingdom, notably an orange one. In the trailer we see various characters holding the titular tears, which seem to contradict this shot. We see Tulin with a green tear, Sidon with a blue tear, and what appears to be a red tear in Ganondorf's headdress which covers his forehead. A yellow one is also seen in Zelda's possession during the trailer, and I think this one is handed to her by Rauru, the Sage of Light. If this is the case, then expect the others all to be element based as well, which is no surprise. Tulin's would represent wind, Sidon's water, and Ganondorf's fire. With this in mind, the tear inside of this room would represent spirit, and this room would be the end room from a dungeon inspired by the Spirit Temple or Arbiter's Ground somewhere within the Gerudo Desert, which feels more like a wasteland right now. This will eventually go on to become the stone held by Riju, the new champion of Gerudo and eventual Spirit Stage incarnate. The next page shows what looks like one of the spiral stones, but it is completely infused with the green energy that we've seen throughout the game. The image on the left is confirmed as being a crystal stand, and I presume because of these markings that these particular stands are found in the sky. The block on the right is a Quarry Island block. I wonder if this means that this block is found on a specific island where a new construct type will be found that will chip away at these blocks. The blocks actually resemble the goddess cubes from Skyward Sword, and I wonder whether we will need to demolish these in order to find some goodies up on the Sky Islands. Keys up next, and their eyes are shown in a separate box. These will attach to the arrows to form homing arrows of various forms. A non-elemental, a fire, an ice, and a shock homing arrow. We've got some moving stone statues next, and these seem to be on rail systems of some format. It looks like you can push these across the rails in order to complete a puzzle of some form. This looks like it could be within the same dungeon as the orange tier resides in due to the sandy looking nature of the walls in the background. We next have an image of Link with a weapon on his back. The weapon resembles a flower of some form upon a rod. We have seen this before, as the section in the middle of the weapon opens up when it's swung and it releases an energy akin to how rods worked in Breath of the Wild. We see Link fighting a Talus with this in an earlier trailer. This area confuses me a little bit, as we see a giant water wheel, but it's set within a building we saw earlier on in the art book, which looked more like a meeting room of sorts for the Rito. It's almost Incan in design, but that fits the design a lot of the Zonai gear also. We see water falling from the ceiling in the background. We see another paraglider next, this one with a Stau Hinox on it. The colour palette used on this makes it look like an X-ray, which is pretty cool. To the left of this we see Pura taking Link's hair scrunchie out, revealing his flowing locks of hair in what's a relatively comical drawing. I'm not sure that we'll actually ever see this scene play out in the game, but it's quite a humorous doodle. If every other shot of the outside of the tree island wasn't feeding me the idea that this led to a dungeon, this shot of the inside of the tree island definitely is. We see a massive open room, with a tree root invading the inside of the building and a blue pad, presumably for riding down on and into the dungeon proper. The flame breaker set is shown next, and Link is seen wearing this inside of the latest trailer. It doesn't look like this has changed at all since Breath of the Wild. Below this is a set of 4 different angles of a giant monster liver. Monster parts seem like they will be collected and used widely within the game, likely again during making elixirs. We next see an image of a Hylian wearing what looks like a different colour variation of Link's main outfit throughout the game. It has a purple hue to it, but other than that this is exactly the same. I wonder if there's a means of equipment management as well as having allies to fight with within the game, if we will be able to equip them with the spare equipment in our inventories as a means of making them stronger. On the next page we have a Sheikah male, and this design of his armour looks almost identical to the Sheikah from Ocarina of Time. The armour is predominantly dark blue with a lighter blue chest plate and a giant eye in the middle, which we have grown to know as the Sheikah eye. It would appear as if the Sheikah will be a force within this game also, and that they will be another one of the races helping us to defeat Ganondorf. I love that this will feel like a global effort to stop evil, and that it won't just rely on one person to save the day. I think we will see as the game goes on a purple or shadow tier, and I think that is likely to be held by either Impa or Pyre. We know that this game is a few years removed from Breath of the Wild based on character design, especially when it comes to Tulin, who seems to have grown up a little since our last outing. We are shown another Rito here, and she's a young female with purple plumes. During Breath of the Wild, we help a child Rito find 3 other children, and she also has purple plumes. She also wears the exact same apron, which leads me to think that this could well be an older Keel. Ronson from Tarrytown has his own paraglider, which is fun, but I'm confused as to why. And on the left here, we have what has been named as a refinery conveyor belt. This is interesting that it's listed as a refinery belt because we've seen a refinery in the Zelda series before, the Lanayru mining facility. This dungeon seems to act as a literal refinery for timeshift stones. We've seen no real reference to them in this game so far, other than possibly the spiral stones, but I'm not sure that these have properties to do with time, and it would seem as if they're going to be more like shrines than anything else. I'm almost certain though that we will be revisiting dungeons from old Zelda games, and I do wonder if below the sand in the Gerudo Desert is actually the mining facility, as it was hidden this way in Skyward Sword. Preparation of hot air balloons is next, and this shows that we can affix fans to help us capture wind better for a more directed flight, or we can attach balloons for a more floaty journey. Impa and Pyre are shown next, and I'm still pretty sure the hats dictate the level of power within the Sheikah tribe, with the longer the tip of the hat and the more ornate the artifact poking out of the top of the hat being a sign of more importance. We finally have a name for these weird lizard bats that we've seen all over the place, and it would seem as if they are called Kokuda. At least this could well be the Japanese name for them, and we may well get a new localization for Europe. They also seem to drop eyes, a bigger version of a key cyborg. I wonder how these will react with arrows when they're combined together. The next image is what is confirmed to be called a pirate ship. I love these ships, and we actually see a few of these fly past us in the latest trailer. Although the ones in the trailer are more friendly than this one. The ones in the trailer are seemingly Rito in design, even being based off of birds for the ornate part of the ship. But this one is adorned with a giant skull at the helm of the ship and looks run down. I at first got excited and thought this was going to be a throwback to the sand ship, but actually I think this might be an Easter egg in design to something else. This looks like a brand new reimagining of the pirate ship from the Oracle games. Whilst only 8-bit, the design of the ship is relatively similar, with a skull on the helm and shabby rigging. Now I think that with the inclusion of the Rito ships, we will also have air battles between 2 sets of sides of ships. The Barbarian set is back once again, and we also have stone monuments with lots of Hylian text on it. If anyone wants to give a go at translating this, I'd massively appreciate it, but as far as I can see, this looks like it will activate some form of lore. A little like the monuments left outside of the Zora domain in Breath of the Wild. Guys, we're nearly there, and I don't know whether to feel relieved that we've got this far through the art book, or sad at the fact that we're at the end. We have 2 pages left, and I won't lie, this last page before the final mural is confusing. We have what looks like a giant sand seal, made of rock, put upon a stone plinth with jewels and gold surrounding it. The note references that this is similar to the stone statues in the throne room. I don't think that this is referencing the throne room in the Hyrule Castle, but rather the throne room for inside of Riju's palace. And that's it. We're down to the final image of the art book and of this series. I've had an absolute blast putting this together, and thank you so much for your comments, for getting involved, and just for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. We see one final mural, similar to the one of Varuta and the scorpion that we are yet to encounter. This confirms something though. These murals or etchings in the ground are in fact bosses. And this one is of the big bad himself, although it just looks like a crazed beast form of Ganon. If anything, this potentially spoils 2 things for us. One, that the etchings are indeed bosses, and that this game doesn't end with Ganondorf, but rather with Ganon, as per typical Zelda canon. It also confirms that this last outpouring of hatred and malice is likely to be the last boss we see in the game, and therefore we won't be fighting Demise at the end of the game. This does not mean that Ganondorf is not possessed, as it were, with the hatred that comes from Demise's spirit within the sword, as I suggested before. And it is still a very real possibility, seeing as we've seen this insane shot of Ganondorf in the latest trailer, which indicates that he's almost gone crazy with a bloodlust for power. And that's it. The final page of the art book for the game that releases in little more than 2 weeks. I know for a fact that I can't wait for the game to be in my hands. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing and commenting on these videos. Bye!